meeting of the Independence Planning Commission. Before I begin our meeting, let's rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our meetings, it is the responsibility of this commission to hold public hearings and make recommendations to the Independence City Council on matters relating to zoning and land use changes within our city. Our procedure for each case tonight will be as follows. First, each case has an applicant, and the applicant will be recognized to speak on behalf of their case, followed by anyone else in attendance that wishes to speak in favor of that matter. The city staff will give the report first, and then the applicant will be asked to come forward. After people who have spoken in favor of the matter have had their chance, then those who are in opposition or those who simply have questions regarding the case will be recognized to speak. Then if there was any opposition or questions from the public, the applicant will be invited forward to speak again and address those concerns or questions. Once the applicant is finished, the chair will declare the public hearing portion of the case closed, and further comment from the public will not be recognized. At this point, the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss the merits of the case with one another, and during that discussion, the commission reserves the right to ask questions of all parties concerned. And then finally, we'll render a decision in the case. Because this is the only public hearing of the cases that are on the agenda tonight, all those who wish to speak will be heard. And the chair asks that all statements be kept brief and on point, and that all comments and questions should be addressed to the chair and not directly to the applicant or the staff. Now, to expedite tonight's meeting, the chair asks that everyone who wishes to testify or who believes that they may testify, or if they are the applicant and they have to testify, please stand now and be sworn in. Okay. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, I do. Thank you. You may be seated. Is there any change in the agenda tonight, staff?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we'll begin today with case number 19-100-10, rezoning of 11004 East US 40 Highway. The staff, please give the report.
Yes, Aldi Incorporated seeks to rezone the property at 11004 East US 40 Highway from R6 single-family residential and C2 general commercial to C1 neighborhood commercial. The vicinity map shows the location of the site on the north side of 40 Highway, south of 39th Street, a couple of blocks west of Sterling. The zoning for this area with the property in the oval. The properties to the north and east are zoned R6 single family. To the west and south are various commercial uses that are zoned C2. C2 again being the red and the yellow, light yellow being the R6. The future comprehensive land map, the future land use map shows community commercial uses for this entire area. This aerial photo shows the site in the oval. There's a single family homes to the north and the east, and commercial properties to the south and west. This concept plan provided by Aldi shows the preliminary layout of the store and parking on the site and the 3 lots that are included with this rezoning application. Okay, here we're looking south across East 39th Street at the northern part of the site, which is elevated above the remainder of the property about 8 feet. Okay, these next two slides, we're on the north side of the property looking down into the main portion of the site. You can see the partial walls for former buildings and retaining wall. Off in the distance is US 40 highway. Basically, the site's wider, so there's two pictures. This is the east side and this is the west side. This is the property as we stand on 40 highway looking north into the site. Large parking areas, and you can see some retaining walls and building walls off in the distance. Here we're back on the rear of the property, looking at the houses on the north side of East 39th Street across from the property. This is slightly to the northwest, and then more directly to the north, and slightly to the northeast. And here we're looking down East 39th Street, east down 39th Street from the subject property. And here we're looking west up 40 highway, up 39th Street. 40 highway is off in the distance, as you can see there. This is a small retail building that's just east of the site on the northern side of 40 highway. And then these two commercial businesses are on the south side of 40 highway across from the site. That's a restaurant there and audio store, I guess you call it. Coolcrest is just a little ways to the west of here. This is a Subway restaurant, which is just west of the site. And here we're looking east down 40 highway, and then west down 40 highway. And staff recommends approval of this application. Again, this is for the rezoning only.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions to staff before we ask the applicant to come forward? Okay. Would the applicant please come forward? And if you would, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sam Malinowski, 919 West Stewart Road, Columbia, Missouri, representing Aldi. I've also got Ryan Stimmons with Aldi.
Okay.
I really don't have anything to add to that. We've been working with staff closely on this. Basically, we've got, there's 3 lots there. They're zoned C2 and R6. We're going to zone them all to C1, which is what we need for the grocery store.
Okay. Staff, they're rated, but they're rated 2 things at the same time? Or is one of them, or partial of them?
You can see from this zoning, you've got C2 along, which is the red, and there on the corner of the thing, there's a little piece of R6. The original idea was to rezone just that little corner there to C2, and then the idea was changed that later C1 would be appropriate zoning here. So we're rezoning all the red part and the little yellow part to C1. Again, the C2 part is like most of 40 highway, stripped out 200 feet behind the frontage. That's why you get little pieces of lot that is not commercially zoned. And I think in the past there had been actually commercial uses or some sort of parking on that little yellow semi-triangle there.
Okay, thank you. All right, if that's all you have, we appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of this case? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm business just west of there.
Okay, well, just make sure because it's recorded and.
Okay. My name's Christopher Melchert, and I own the business at 11001 East 39th, just west of there. And I'm not here to oppose them, but like when they put the Walmart in over there, they don't lock their dumpsters, and we end up with Walmart carts in our parking lot 5 blocks away from their business daily. If they open up next to us and they don't lock we lock our dumpsters. To lock your dumpsters, $5 a month to lock your dumpsters. We have a large homeless gathering there. If they don't lock their dumpsters, they're going to destroy that area. They're going to turn it into a trash dump. They're in the dumpsters every day. They string stuff everywhere, and they're going to create a buffet. Not to mention, we have to lock our dumpsters because everybody around us thinks it's free to dump their trash. So they don't have to pay a trash service, and everybody eats free. Subway's the same way. They won't lock their dumpsters. And I think if you put in a business that serves food, we don't serve food. We're just a tattoo shop. But we have to lock our dumpsters because they tear all the trash out of it and throw it all over our parking lot and trash the whole parking lot and then fill it up with whoever wants to dump free when we leave. So if a business is going to come in, they should be able to clean up their parking lot, keep their carts in their lots, and lock their dumpsters so that we don't have to deal with that problem. Because I would welcome Aldi's as long as they're going to act accordingly and clean up after themselves just like we do. V's Restaurant's very good about it. Cool Crest is very good about it. But the majority of the places around us, they don't care. They're tired of fighting with the people that come there and just lounge. And it's not just the homeless. These are drunk, drug addicts. They leave dirty needles. They urinate and defecate in our parking lots. They have sex on the side of the road. They hold up signs that say, why lie, I need a blunt. I mean, they're on the side of the freeway asking people to give them drugs. And if they're gonna feed them and let them into their dumpsters, then I don't want no part of it. But as long as they come in and conduct themselves accordingly and make our neighborhood safer, I'm all for it.
Okay, well, we'll give them an opportunity to address that because I think there was a question in there somewhere. But we'll have them come forward. Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak in favor of this case? Okay. Is there anyone here who is opposed or has questions? All right. I'm going to close. Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody raised? Yeah. All right.
Did you want to give the applicant time
I
to?
did. I'll go over this with you later. Because anyway, could the applicant please come forward and just I'm sure you want to be good neighbors. Just address how you're going to do that, or if you're not going to do it.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Stimmons. Excuse me, I got a little bit of allergies.
Yes.
Ryan Stimmons, I'm the Director of Real Estate for Aldi's Olathe Division here in Kansas City. And so I appreciate his sentiments and I understand exactly what he's saying. We don't have a problem locking up the dumpster itself. Now, we can't necessarily lock the gates for the dumpster just because of the simple fact that would require us to have the trash company that provides the service to us to be able to have a key. They're not going to do that. It's really inconvenient for them, but we don't have a problem. We've had situations in other stores around the city where we've locked the dumpster. We make every effort to keep everything inside of our containers, our dumpster containers. Unfortunately, sometimes people still have a tendency to try to do whatever they can to get inside of those dumpsters. I can't prevent that, but we can put forth every effort we can to take measures to prevent those type of situations from occurring. In regards to the trash blowing, we're no different than any other retailer that's going to be up along that strip. We can't control trash from Walmart clear across the other side of I-70 blowing all the way over here to us. That's just nature. I mean, unfortunately, water bottles from here end up in the Pacific Ocean, but I can't be responsible for that as well. We're going to be the best neighbors that we possibly can. The traffic that we're going to generate in front of his business, he's going to benefit from that potentially. So I think that there's definitely a win-win situation here that we certainly will be willing to do whatever we can to prevent those type of situations from occurring. However, I can't make any promises that there still aren't going to be situations to where people come back there and do some of the things that he mentioned. I can't control that. Humans are humans. They're going to do what they need to do. In regards to shopping carts, our cart system is set up to where you have to have a quarter to unlock the carts, and then our customers are really good about bringing the carts back to be able to lock them back up, and we don't have carts rolling around throughout the parking lots, throughout the evening. We do a really good job of containing our parking lots, so that issue shouldn't be a problem at all. But like I said, we're more than willing to do whatever we have to do to be able to cooperate and be really good neighbors, but I can't sit here and say that there aren't going to be instances that come up that it's just going to happen. There's eventually going to be trash somewhere that's going to blow around. We'll do our best to maintain our facilities, our parking lot area. We don't store cardboard outside. We don't store anything outside. Everything is contained within inside of the building. So that's not going to be an issue, unlike maybe some of the other retailers around the neighborhood. But long story short, we'll do whatever we can to be the best neighbors. But again, we can't promise that situations will not occur that just are going to be the same thing that happens anywhere else along the strip.
Okay, well, thank you for addressing that.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate it. Now I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, any comments, questions for staff or motions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
Thank you.
In the matter of Alder rezoning at 11004 East US 40 Highway, the request to rezone from R6 Single Family Residential and C2 General Commercial to C1 Neighborhood Commercial. I move that that request be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Preston moved and Commissioner McLean seconded. Unless there's any comments or motions against this, let's take the vote.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner McLean,
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes. Case number 19-100-10 rezoning for 11004 East US 40 Highway has been approved. Good luck to you folks. Good luck to you folks. I think we've seen you here before, a couple of years back. Thanks for coming in and giving your... Yeah. Okay, our next case is case number 19-100-11, rezoning for 1220 South Swope Drive. City staff, give the report, please.
Chris and Peyton Coulter, applicants of the 6.3 acre tract at 1220 South Swope Drive, containing their residence and 5 associated accessory structures, would like to build an additional building, a garage, on the property. However, given that the property is 2 different zonings, a permit cannot be granted without rezoning the tract. So if you look at the vicinity map here, you can see we're talking near Truman Road, not at the corner, but the property just up the hill on the west side to the south, there on the west side of Swope Drive. Looking at the zoning here, you can see that it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a C-shaped property there inside of the loop there. And the northern portion, where the accessory building would be constructed, is currently zoned R6, and then most of the rest of the property is zoned R18 PUD, where the existing residence is. As you can see, the future land use plan envisions this area to be residential, commercial neighborhood area. Looking back at the zoning here again, you can see most of the neighborhood is zoned R6, except for the area east of the property and to the south. The area to the east is basically an undeveloped tract, as you can see from the aerial photo here. And then you have single-family homes on most of these other large lot and standard lots that surround in the vicinity. The northern portion of this property, you can, if you look closely, it zigzags across the property line there. There's a creek there. And that it's a third order stream, which would have a buffer area that would take up much of the northern third of that property. So any garage that they constructed on this property would have to be outside of those stream buffer setback areas, as well as meet side yard property setbacks from adjacent property lines. There's the existing gravel driveway that you can see that is in the northeastern part of the property, and then turns and then goes to the southern part of the property to access the house and that large accessory building there on the southeast part of the property. That gravel driveway is legal non-conforming, would remain. However, any driveway that would come off of that to go to that new garage would need to be paved. This slide has the site plan showing the location of the proposed garage there. As you can see, like I said, the applicant actually owns that smaller property that this larger property surrounds, but most everything that's built on the property is on that larger property. So that this proposed garage would be between that property line and then any buffer for the stream that would be on the north side of that garage there. And then the picture to the right, or not the drawing to the right, is the vicinity map indicating all the surrounding properties that are within 185 feet that got notification. So this is from the east side of Swope, looking west across Swope Drive into the driveway of the property. This is looking up the hill to the south, down Swope. And then this is down the hill to the north toward Truman Road. This is looking into the interior of the property. And this is looking into the interior from the driveway. And this is looking sort of north along the far eastern edge of the property. So the house would be behind the camera. And then this is that roughly the same area, but stepping a little bit farther to the east. So you can see the fence line there and the road going north to Truman. So staff recommends approval of this rezoning, and I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
Does anyone have questions? The only question I have is, so you're not gonna put any requirements. Is that the right word?
Well, we can't put restrictions on zoning.
Or was it a
I don't mean that.
recommendation for the driveway?
Recommendations. Because you said, well, if he does this, he needs a driveway paved.
Well, that's just part of
That's part
our
of the,
code requirements.
a different
that, As
requirement.
part of the permitting process, we will review and make sure he meets that, but we can't
Okay.
condition that to the zoning.
well, I just wanted to be clear before we went into that that's what the case was. Okay. Would the applicant please come forward? State your name and address for the record, and please make sure that you speak directly in the microphone.
Chris Coulter. I live at 1220 South Swope Drive in Independence. And we are, as he explained very well, we're just looking to add another building on the property and hoping to get it zoned so we can pass the permits.
Okay.
And yeah, and they've done wonderful helping us know we were planning to pave the driveway anyway, so that was kind of a win-win.
Sure.
And so it works out just fine, and I don't think there's any, and they did explain the stream setback. So we are planning, once everything is complete, to actually replat to get rid of the two sections, so that way it's one piece of property as well. But we're not gonna, since we're hoping to have it fit perfectly off the property line and everything, and not into the stream setback. And so as long as that goes well on measuring it out, then if we have to, we will replat before so that it qualifies, but we should be able to make it all work.
And this building's just for personal use? It's
Yes.
not for any commercial use? Okay.
Nope.
All right, does anyone have questions? Mr. Coulter?
I know.
All right. Thank you. Pretty straightforward. Appreciate it. Does anyone else here like to speak in favor? Is anyone else here opposed or ask questions? Okay. Closed. The public hearing portion. Any comments, motions?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve case number 19-100-11, rezoning of 1220 South Swope Drive.
I have a second.
I second.
Okay. Ms. McLean, Pat, moved, and Heather seconded. Unless there's any debate that we need to have, let's have the vote.
Commissioner Preston.
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Wiley.
Yes.
Commissioner McLean.
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes. Case number 19-100-11, rezoning for 1220 South Slope Drive has been approved. Thank you, folks, and good luck. You're welcome. Okay. Is there anything that staff wants to share with us?
Why not? So some of you were there last night at the City Council study session, and at this point, staff is going to wait for further instruction from City Council before bringing forward any proposed changes or no proposed changes, depending on what direction they choose to go. I do want to pass on that when our short-term rental cases do circle back around and we start hearing those again, we are going to try to do a better job in our staff report, making sure that those 3 questions that I kind of talked about last night that get at sort of those criteria that are outlined in the UDO are more clearly shown on the staff report for you guys and the answers to those questions. We'll also provide information about proximity to the nearest short-term rental. Currently we only have 2 in a residential, 1 in a commercial. So we'll provide you some information so you have a little more information about density and that kind of stuff. At this point, there's no regulation or requirement on that. We're just going to provide that information for you as part of the staff report to let you guys, use that as part of your judgment. But so that's kind of what staff is thinking at this point. As we move forward, if you have other thoughts that would make your decisions easier, we're willing to incorporate those kind of under the current terms. But just so you guys are aware, we're going to hold off, wait to see any further direction from council, and then we'll be back to you with any information as far as follow-up meetings or changes, proposed changes, and those kind of things. So,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Could you explain a little bit about Rental Ready?
So what I do know about Rental Ready is that it's basically an inspection program for long-term rentals, regular rentals. Currently in the city, landlords are required to have a landlord license, and then all of their rental properties, or a portion of them if they own multiple rental properties, need to be inspected on a 2-year basis. So that's kind of managed by the Community Development Department. I think there's several contractors out there that do these inspections. The inspections are for sort of life safety things like wiring and those, I don't know exactly what all is in there, but basically making sure that some basic, safety things are taken care of in rentals. So that's something that could be potentially used as additional inspections for short-term rentals. But, that's sort of a discussion to be had down the road. But at this point, it's just an inspection process for long-term rentals to keep them kind of compliant with health and safety codes.
And what does the city require as far as inspection of a regular hotel? Does the city require any kind of inspection or
So,
beyond a fire inspection?
so I don't know all of what's required because actually those are state inspections. So once you get beyond 4 rooms, those are state health inspections. So if it's all right with you, I can look into that and bring that information back. But I know that it's actually the state that requires those inspections. When we had a full-fledged health department, our health department would do those inspections, but where they were reimbursed by the state for those inspections. So I'm not 100% sure what is all included as part of that. But if that's information you guys would like, I can certainly do some research and bring some answers to that next time.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep everybody, but a hotel, like, is yours considered a hotel? Don't they have to put something on the door, don't they? Like a fire escape plan and all that stuff? It says you're gonna, there's a tax included in this, and
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
mean,
I've
I
seen
haven't
those on
never
the
read
back
it.
of-
I see it there, but
Yeah. And I think those are some of the things that were kind of mentioned last night, escape plans and fire extinguishers and those types of things. Like I said, I don't know exactly what is all required by the state health inspection, but those are the very similar things that are required.
I also doubt that you can probably do this, but one thing that occurred to me is, and not that I don't see a lot of reputable people joining something like this, but, a lot of these Airbnbs or short-term rentals are part of a group so they're responsive to people's needs because there's a rating system and there's feedback. I don't know if we can strongly suggest or require that these people that are doing this belong to a group like that. Probably not, but I would like for you to look into that as well,
Okay.
if you could.
My understanding is that, those ratings are sort of by platform. So Airbnb would give you a rating, and you as a person staying there would also have a rating based on how you left the premises and that kind of stuff. So, but we can definitely do some research and see what those other requirements are or rating systems for other platforms as well. Because right now they can't just have a short-term rental on their own. They need to have this other vehicle, this website, this service that provides that sort of connecting.
So, and I think that residential areas should be held to a higher scrutiny than something that would be commercial or in a differently zoned. Because the people that are coming and worried about this are the residents in the neighborhoods.
And that's how the ordinance is currently written. Anything in a residential district goes through our public process here and your approval or denial, and then must get a business license. In a commercial, our other short-term rental, our third, that was actually in a home along 23rd Street, but it's zoned commercial. So they just need to get a business license,
Yeah.
according to ours. So we do treat residential neighborhoods differently than if it's a home that's happened to be zoned commercial.
Okay. It would also occur to me that people that are in a long-term rental situation probably have a lot more rights as far as, renters' rights than a short-term rental person would. So I'm kind of wondering if we really need to restrict the number in a neighborhood. Now, maybe the historic neighborhood's a different situation, but I would think that the restriction, they would, if there's a neighborhood that has 20 of them in there and there's 50 houses, I don't see that sustainable,
And I think under current code, I mean, that would be a decision for you guys to make. At what point do you feel that it would create a disruption?
I don't mind
mean,
putting an arbitrary number on there. To me, that's not as important.
that would be staff's response to that, at some point when you have the information in front of you to say, okay, there are 10 other licensed Airbnb or short-term rentals in this neighborhood. That could be the point when you as the commission decide, okay, well, should this be approved or not?
Yeah.
That helps. I don't think I even understood that. I didn't really think we had that ability to say yay or nay.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you guys are unless there's, someone appeals a decision to the city council or there's a legal protest. You guys are the final say on,
Okay.
not on their business license, on the allowability of the short-term rental. After that, they must apply for business license.
But haven't we only been approving business licenses so far?
So it's a slightly different process. No, a business license is separate and aside. What you are approving is the use of a short-term rental at that location by that owner. So if that owner were to sell the house, just like you would a home-based business, that approval of that short-term rental no longer exists because that owner is not doing that business there. So think about these as more like home-based businesses when those come in front of you. You should be reviewing those in kind of a similar manner. That if someone's teaching piano lessons in their home and they stop doing it, they'd have to come back in front of you to get that approval.
So say 10 people came to us and wanted Airbnbs on 1 or 2 block area, we could decide whether we felt like 10 was too much on a 2 block area. That's up to us to be able to decide.
Absolutely. The UDO shows criteria that say if,
I didn't
in your
understand
judgment, if, it could pose a threat to, health and safety of the neighborhood or traffic or vehicular, pedestrian traffic in the area. Those are all factors that you can take into account to disapprove of an application.
And once they have this business license, can they be held to a higher scrutiny as far as how they keep their property up?
So yeah,
Or-
once a business has a business license, if they have any violation of city code or complaints against them, as I mentioned last night, city staff has the ability to hold a business license administrative hearing, bringing those concerns to the business owner and, give the owner an opportunity to make any changes, fix the issues, and if, the solution is unsatisfactory or doesn't happen, the city can pull that business license.
And that would differ. See, what I'm looking at long-term rental and short-term rental, and which one. And I know, I don't mean to sound like I'm a discriminatory person, but it seemed to me like if you had a short-term rental and your neighborhood was full of short-term rentals, and the city actually had the power to do something about, you got to keep your property up. You got to. I don't know that you have that. I think the process, you correct me if I'm wrong, to do something about a long-term rental situation is there's a lot more effort that needs to be done.
That is correct. Yeah, short-term rentals are much more regulated, and we have more avenues to go after a non-conforming business or a disruptive business in a neighborhood.
So I'm just putting it out there that if you have a lot of long-term rental folks, like in a historic district, and some renters take care of the property, some don't. Matter of fact, most probably don't. So what's going to keep the character of the neighborhood together is either people, moving in there and fixing the home up, and they have a family, and that's great. But I don't know that that's a big factor in people trying to decide if they move in there. I think, schools and the character of the neighborhood and everything is probably more important, as far as moving into a place, rather than if they want to sink a ton of money into a place that's falling apart because they like it. I think those folks are out there. I think they're rare. So I don't know that a short-term rental situation may not be such a bad deal. And as long as you have all your criteria lined out and everything's good, that's just what I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind.
So I just want to clarify it. So you're saying a short-term rental, actually, there are more tools that people can, neighbors, whatever, can utilize to complain or to keep them more compliant than a long-term.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are avenues you can go, for a regular long-term rental, but as was mentioned, those are slower and take more time, and there's landlord-tenant complaints that have to be filed and all those kind of things. So.
Okay.
I think we should perhaps revisit B&Bs. And because that format was prior to the computer-supported Airbnb concepts. But in reality, there's not that much difference, save for the fact that B&B will perhaps prepare some food. Well, in many cases, the short-term rentals will have kitchens where there will be food prepared, of course, by the lessee. We need to be careful here, because if this short-term rental has the potential of being good and being cancerous. But I think we need to evaluate the short-term rentals and look at it in light of what we have done with B&Bs. They're not that much difference. It's just a different technology and a different time period.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and that's something that we
Yeah.
have talked about as staff internally, that, you know, based on the way we're handling these, it probably warrants a relook at bed and breakfasts to kind of bring them in line with current understanding of how those businesses work versus short-term rentals. So that's something we can absolutely look into.
The impact on our neighborhoods is substantially the same. You've got visitors for short term. They, save for the fact that the B&Bs are owner operated, which is something we perhaps should look at even for the short term rentals, as many other cities are doing, because we can substantially change the character of neighborhoods and absolutely deplete the market for affordable housing for local residents, both to purchase and to rent. You're back.
I'm sorry. Just give me 1 second, please. I can't remember what I was going to say.
Well, a quick meeting would be great.
Yeah, it was important. Oh, it was something about the owner operator being local.
Oh, we talked about that.
Well, we talked about it. I don't know if.
Preferred it.
Oh yeah, I super prefer it, but I don't know if it's
Yeah,
going to be one of those things that's going to be allowed.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, we'll have to wait for some direction from council on whether they have any appetite for that. It seems like it would be awful hard to regulate that. However, we could look at, you know, the property manager sort of aspect of that. If they're not local, they have a local property manager that would,
Well,
you
and
know,
I would,
can fill that gap. But
yeah, I would say if the property manager is local, and by that I guess, you know, you could say that maybe whatever the Kansas City metro area would be, maybe 10-mile radius, I don't know. But the other thing would be is if you said, okay, the property manager could, and then someone says, hey, you know, I can specialize in this, and I'm going to get me 100 of them, and I'm going to manage them, then do we make the owner responsible, or do we make the property manager person responsible as well? Because if they're local property managers, I'm sure they'd want to do something. But if they're representing someone from California and they say, well, I don't care, you know, and they say, well, this person doesn't care, so my hands are tied because I can't do anything, then you've lost all your leverage.
I mean, you guys would be approving the owner. They would be the applicant for the short-term rental. The property owner or property management company would simply be, you know, sort of the emergency contact and be the person there to be able to quickly respond to complaints or those kind of things. So that's just, you know, sort of something to think about.
But it still begs the question, if an owner comes in, I mean, we had a guy flying in from California because he was upset about the restaurant that was going in next to his education building. So if the owner flies in and says, well, you can't stop me from doing this because he's not local.
But
That's why we would probably, as staff, prefer not to look at those kind of limits.
But we also get to decide that, right? We get to say yes or no.
Well, we get to decide as long as we're in the rules. So if we can't say that, well, I'm sorry, you don't live here, so you can't do it. You got to put some teeth in this thing, man. You just can't, you know, I mean, because probably the biggest complaint before this with residents is people who rent and don't take care of the properties.
Well, as we mentioned, the short-term rentals are more regulated than long-term rentals. So,
Well, I just want to make sure that, like, you guys have some ability to actually do something. There's no sense in having all these regulations and you can't do anything about it.
So maybe it's a situation where if what we're trying to avoid is having somebody from wherever across the country own something here, but it's managed locally, like if there's a tool, so if they get complained, so many complaints or so many fines against them, it's finally like, okay, you're done. I mean, that's in place, right?
I mean, that would happen with any business, whether they were
Yeah.
local or not local. You know, we have that ability
not
to review their
compliant.
business license if they have complaints, if they have property maintenance violations, if they have any of those things. So again, you're part of the review. If you guys felt like a non-local owner wasn't in the best position to manage that business, you could factor that into your review.
In some mature markets where this short-term rental has had residents for quite some time, some markets have actually tied the owner-operator to must have a homestead exemption at that site. And the reason for that is to ensure the cancerous growth does not take place and the taking off the market from families who would otherwise have purchased or rented that particular site, who will not simply be able to compete with the investor, whether that investor is a local investor or an out-of-state or investor. I'm really concerned about this. I am really concerned.
Understood. And as mentioned before, we're kind of at this point waiting for direction from council, and
Good luck.
that's sort of where staff is at this point. So,
They didn't seem too enthused about getting into the weeds with you.
I have no comment.
Well, yeah, okay. Let me just share a little experience I had, because I've done this one time in Colorado. What these folks had done was they had like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and then like a living room situation in a multiplex. So what they did was they had 2 short-term rentals in that place. So one was just a bedroom and a bath, and the other was a kitchen, a bedroom and a bath. Now the thing that made it work is that there was 2 exits, right? One for, I don't know what the fire code is over there. I guess the window is considered an exit if it's on the ground floor. But, they had 2 exits. So when you look at the place, do the fire guys look at that and say, hey, you can only have this space because you got to have all these
that
exits?
situation would not be allowed under our code for several reasons. First,
That's what I wanted to
it's not allowed in multi-unit. Our Airbnbs or short-term rentals are only allowed in single-family or 2-family homes. So a single-family home or a duplex. Additionally, even if you have 4 rooms, it's not allowed that you rent out part of it to one group and part of it to another. It has to be all one group for one stay. So that situation would not happen under our code.
We need to revisit that.
So, yeah. Which, how much staff, if any, is there to police this? None?
You're looking at them more or less. I mean,
You guys don't have enough to do you?
yeah,
That's in the fire department, okay. So, is this beyond hope that if this tax that we're gathering from these folks or the license fees that we're gathering for these folks would not support another person to actually do this job? You don't have a very
I know it's just an
where's
interesting
this
question.
tax going? That's
That,
what
I
wanna
mean,
know.
I will just say that decision's made way above my pay grade, so I'm not sure, if that's going to go to the tourism department as the transient guest tax does, or if, any part of it has been earmarked for anything
Oh,
else.
I see. So the decision made to collect the tax, but not
Not where it
exactly
goes.
what to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And most of that transient tax goes to tourism.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay, does anybody else have any comments besides me? And it's not about short-term rentals. Can I please close the public portion after we've heard all the againers and the questioners? Because we as a commission can call the person, the applicant, back forward asking to say it. But if I don't close that, and all of a sudden all these people want to say something, I may not want them to say something. I may want them to, I may want to say, well, I'll hear from one of you, but I need to close that public portion. And I don't see why I can't.
Can you, after closing?
No, after
Can you,
closing,
after
I'm going to call
closing
the
the
guy
public session,
forward.
can you call back the public?
It's just a Robert's Rules kind of thing. It's not,
You're talking about to allow the applicant to do a rebuttal?
no, I want
After-
him to do a rebuttal, but I want to close it and then call him
Yeah,
up here.
that's what I mean.
So I can control,
To do the rebuttal after the hearing is closed.
yeah, because, I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but if this thing is packed full of people and then it just goes on ad infinitum. And if most of the people that had a comment really had a point to make, it'd be different, but most of the time they don't. So like I did last time, which again was probably a mistake on my part, we talked about, not about the city needed to look at the short-term rental thing. And I said, well, I'm going to let two people have a question. The first one, I wish I hadn't allowed. The second person had a good point. So I think I'd rather have control of that, and I don't see why I can't. Got to go on the record, man.
So my understanding is that you're wanting to close testimony, but then allow rebuttal. Is that what I'm understanding?
In our thing, it says, and it does say this, says once the applicant is finished, the chair will, if there's opposition or questions from the public, the applicant will be allowed a rebuttal period. That's fine. He says right there he's allowed. So we'll allow him to come forward, and we reserve the right to hear from whoever we want to hear from.
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather, after everyone has done with their questions and comments, that section, close it, and then let the applicant come forward to give his rebuttal. It still goes on the public record. It just means that after that, if there's a lot of people that want to, make points, I don't mind having a couple of them, but I'd rather have the ability to do that, because if I don't close that, then I have to let everybody that wants to speak.
It seems to me that the best way to handle that then would be to control the amount of speaking that a person can do.
So put a time limit on each.
Yes.
Or just you can
Which you've
come up
done.
once.
Which we have done before.
Or you can come up once, or you need to come up and state what you state in a 2, 3, 4 minute period because of the number of people here. That seems to be the best way to do that.
If you want me to do that, I would agree with that.
What you did with the bee.
And since I can make motions now, that I might just go ahead and do that.
That's what I would recommend.
Okay.
And I think that's fair if you make that comment to everyone, because then they know equal playing field. Everybody can come up. We've got this much time. If you can't get it in,
You're talking about having the people come up and talk, and then we give the applicant a chance to have a rebuttal. But then at that meeting, people wanted to come back and rebut his rebuttal.
Yeah.
That was the issue we had. So
the problem with that is, and this is, I'm going to compare this to being in a courtroom. The prosecution presents first and the prosecution presents last. And if you compare that to what we're doing here, the applicant is the prosecutor bringing forth the case. They get to speak first, they get to speak last. So if they want to rebut, that's fine, but everybody else needs to understand, we're done.
Yeah, and that's what.
The applicant gets the last word.
Right.
And that's the best comparison I can give, and maybe you could use that at some point. If we have a hearing where there's a number of people, you could say, this is like court, the prosecution, the applicant gets to speak first and last, and then we're done.
Yeah, because I don't see the point of having an argument. I mean, we're all, I think, reasonably intelligent
No, at some point it
adults. We can
digresses
understand
into
what they're
that.
saying. We understand the motives, so, yeah, okay.
that's
Well,
how I would look at it.
I will do that. That seems to be fair. And we've done that in the past, so I can live with that.
Right.
Thank you. All right, I'm done. If everybody else is done, the only thing we need to do is approve the minutes. But
No minutes.
do we have any minutes?
No minutes.
Well,
Who was responsible?
They do them 2 by 2s.
that's fine. That's fine. Okay, well, let's just say we're adjourned at 6:55 PM.